And good evening, everyone. Welcome into, well, morning invest, but it's getting on nighttime now. And I wanted to bring you an update on the stimulus because we have breaking news out of Washington at this hour. And I promised you that I would bring you an update if we had it, and we do. And we've got a lot of news to get to. So I saw bits and pieces coming in, and I wanted to wait till I had a cumulative cornucopia of news to bring you on this evening about the stimulus package. So welcome. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. We cover all manner of business news, the news that I think affects families. This is not the Wall Street show for Wall Street types. It's about your personal finance. So thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. All right, so we've got some breaking news out of Washington this afternoon from Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. We have a price tag on direct stimulus checks. I will not make you wait at all to find out what that number is. I put it right in the title. It is $1,200. It is exactly the same, under the exact same conditions as the CARES Act, which passed back at the end of March. I'm so freaking glad that we had to wait this long for you to basically do the exact same thing that we did the last time. Thank you, Senate Republicans, for dragging your stinking feet for 2.5 months, making us wait on tenterhooks for what you're going to do with your precious gavel and your precious pen. So yes, in fact, $1,200 per month, or sorry, one-time payment, $1,200 one-time payment, no recurring payment, plus $500 per dependent. This is far less than what the Democrats wanted inside of the HEROES Act, but Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin confirming that this is the number. I am actually a little surprised at how, I'm surprised at how this is rolled out, because we heard from Mitch McConnell, their plan, what they want in their proposed bill, but then we're hearing from the White House on the stimulus checks. Maybe that was sort of part of this negotiation. It's like, hey, you guys put up your part of the plan. We want to be able to tell the American people that President Trump is going to sign a new round of checks. So let us make that news. So Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin coming out with this news. Let me go through it in detail now if I can for you. So he says we will get up to adjusted gross income up to $75,000. If you are a single filer, individual earning up to $75,000, you'll receive a one-time payment of $1,200. You'll receive $500 per dependent per child. Couples earning up to $150,000 also would qualify. So it just depends on the scale, and it would be whittled down the more you make beyond $75,000. And of course, if you go up to $99,000 is when it's capped. So between $75,000 and $99,000 is what that range would look like. And then it drops a certain percentage, of course, every $1,000 above $75,000 you make. I know it's complicated, but that's the way it is. And up to $198,000 as a couple. Once again, if you are a single filer making under $75,000, you would get $1,200 in a one-time payment and $500 per dependent. Now, the good news here on this stimulus plan and the update is that because they already have all of your information on file, and if you did receive a payment last time during the first stimulus, you should receive it almost immediately once this is passed. They're not going to waste any time. They are going to get this out as quickly as possible, Steven Mnuchin said. So they're going to use the same parameters as the last round of stimulus. It would mean the IRS could quickly get this money out to people. There's not going to be a whole long 3-month wait like so many people had to wait for. It's going to be quick and to the point, and they're going to be able to get this out immediately. The IRS prioritized getting direct deposit information for households earlier this year so that the agency could have this on file. Now, Mnuchin also said in this press conference that they would not rule out additional stimulus. So this might not be the only stimulus we see. Although don't hold your breath on that. He says our proposal is the exact same provision as the last time. And they are working right now to finalize this stimulus bill. So that means 160 million Americans who got stimulus checks earlier this year would get another payment as soon as next month under this plan. So we won't probably see this until the middle of August when you would actually see this check. The plan would see the U.S. Treasury shovel approximately $300 billion into the economy in the next few weeks through these stimulus checks. The payments would arrive as unemployment claims are continuing to go up. We saw a huge spike in unemployment claims today. Record, they had been going down, now it's going back up again as the economy threatens to go back under lockdown. So you're seeing many more people filing for unemployment over the past few weeks, which is not good. This plan wouldn't necessarily immediately help, all of these people, because if you haven't received your first stimulus check yet, and you aren't required to file a tax return, or you are the recipient of a federal benefit program such as Social Security, there are a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily get this immediately because they're still waiting on this information from people. So there are millions of Americans that still haven't gotten the first stimulus check. So, this has been an absolute disaster. I was speaking to a friend this afternoon, and he said, man, how did we screw this up so bad? He's a Republican. He said, how did we mess this up? We have just dropped the ball, haven't we? IRS Commissioner Chuck Rettig, he has disputed that 12 million people haven't received their stimulus check number. I see it right here on our show. I see you posting right here telling me that you still haven't received your first stimulus check. The proposal, of course, would require support from Democrats. So this is what the Republicans are putting forth. They want $1,200 stimulus check. Now, the Democrats could fight this. But at the very least, we now are hearing from the White House and Senate Republicans that they want another stimulus check in the form of $1,200. That is confirmed at this hour. Now, Democrats have to sign off on it. Will they push for more? Of course, the big sticking point right now, the difference in what Democrats want and what Republicans want is that $1,200 dependent payment. That's really the only difference in these payments right now, is just the additional $1,200 for dependents. Also, the caveat that those dependents who are living at home maybe have a disability and are, they're there as a dependent, but they are over the age of 17. Democrats want that provision in there. Republicans do not. So if you have a dependent, hear from you. I read all of your comments. When you leave me a comment, you take the time to leave me a comment, I read your comments, all of them. And I've seen many of you leave me a comment telling me, look, I'm a single mom, my son is 32, he's disabled, he's a dependent, he lives with me, he did not qualify to get a stimulus check under the last stimulus plan. Democrats under the HEROES Act wanted that to be the case. It didn't matter if they're an adult dependent, they would still get a check. Republicans don't want that. So right now, under the Republican check proposal, $1,200, $500 for dependents, and it would look the exact same as the previous CARES Act. So your 32-year-old son who's living with you, who is disabled, would not receive this check. I hope Democrats fight them on that. Democrats, I hope, are listening, and you fight them on that part. If that's the one part of this compromise, maybe the dependent payment doesn't go up, but you get it so that it at least allows those dependents who are adult living at home with a disability or who are dependent living at home for some other reason are able to have access to that money. The same with college students who, for no fault of their own, had to go home and were not dependents, couldn't get a job, saddled with student loan debt, the college was closed down, so they had to go back home. They didn't get checks. So again, this proposal would allow, and if they were a dependent, if they were still a dependent going to college, they weren't eligible because they were over the age of 16. So these are among the changes here. I also want to talk about unemployment because we got some news on unemployment tonight. And that is important to talk about this $600 per week that's about to end. An additional $600 per week is not going to happen. We now know from top Republicans they have reached an agreement on unemployment. They are going to replace this benefit, but it will not be the same. It's going to be less. Their plan would continue to offer larger than normal payments to workers filing for unemployment, but it would significantly reduce the amount of money flowing each week to those people without a job. So 30 million people remain unemployed, and the recovery from the pandemic recession is stuck in the mud right now. So, and again, when we have another uptick in unemployment claims, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And that's what President Trump said. It's only going to get worse before it gets better. Their proposal, pay attention to this is an unemployment proposal, would replace weekly lump sums from the federal government instead of the $600 per week with enhanced benefits. When added to state benefits, it would amount to 70% of what a worker was making before they lost their job. 70% of what you were making before you lost your job. Not 100% of what you were making when you were working, and not 120%, which you might have been making under this $600 per week plan, but now you will make 70% of what you were making at your employment. Democrats want to keep the $600 per week stipend, saying there are significant technical hurdles right now to carrying out this Republican plan, according to the New York Times at this hour. They said, many economists are pointing to the fact that this could cause a major ripple across the economy if this unemployment benefit is not extended to $600 per week. So it would fall basically to about $200 per week. So if you're looking at this, it's going to go from about $600 per week down to about $200 per week on average. Under the Republican plan, the federal government would stop supplementing workers' state unemployment benefits with that $600 lump payment. So again, basically, it's going to be the federal government providing additional money on top of state benefits, but only up to a percentage of 70% of what you were making before. Again, Democrats say, how are you going to pull this off? I'm with them on this. It's been an absolute disaster at the state level trying to get people unemployment benefits. We've seen horrible stories in Florida and other places with lines wrapped around the block, phone lines that no one can answer and give you an answer to the question about filing unemployment. I've seen many of you leave comments here telling me you filed for unemployment 7 weeks ago and still haven't received it. Now, Republicans want to add a whole heaping pile of poop on top of this thing in a technical mess. You're going to make it that much harder now with this? So these poor unemployment office workers, who are terribly understaffed, by the way, are now going to have to get out their abacus, some old calculator, and try to figure out the percentages of what you used to make and figure all this out. And what will the federal benefit be? There's going to have to be an individual, like caseworker, basically working with you to get this through. Or they're going to have to rebuild a website, which you know how the government is on building websites and tweaking the software right now to make it easy. And that's going to either have to happen at the state level, because basically the federal government is saying we're stepping back from this. Now it's going to be a state benefit in the way it's constructed. So you're now asking the states to I don't know, rebuild their software. Every state's website is different. I already see this being a nightmare. So I agree with Democrats on this. You want to add a layer of complex poop on the top of this thing? Huge mistake. Huge mistake. Huge mistake, White House. So Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin suggested that the opening Republican bid in this discussion would be for workers to receive 70%, which is $200 per week. In other words, a typical unemployed American's benefits would drop about $400 per week. That's a typical American. I don't know the exact numbers, but you're losing $400 per week, basically, under the Republican plan. There you go. Democrats want to set the benefits at 100% of what you're making. And they agree. Democrats have been conciliatory. They say we don't necessarily have to stick to the 600, but we want it to at least be 100% of what you were making. At a time when we're facing, I just published a video, I hope you get the chance to watch it, on the coming eviction nightmare that we're about to have. Make sure you check out that video here on the channel. I'll link it up in the description below. Make sure you watch that video, because You know, if people can't go to their job, they've lost their job, and they're about to face evictions because the moratoriums on evictions are not extended, and now you're going to lower the amount that they're going to make from unemployment benefits at no fault of their own for losing this job, you're in for a nightmare. So I hope in all of this, these Republicans throw out their little proposal, their little dog and pony show proposal, and then I hope you have Fed Chair Jerome Powell step in and say, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a huge mistake if you do it this way. Maybe he's going to offer them advice, off the record advice. I don't know. So to recap, if you're just joining us, we've got big news on the stimulus check front from Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. Republicans have come to an agreement. They now have a number. They have a dollar amount for another round of direct stimulus checks, and it will be the exact same format as the CARES Act that was passed at the end of March. So 160 million Americans received stimulus checks under that plan. You would qualify if you made $75,000 in adjusted gross income as a single filer. As a joint couple, up to $150,000. Now, it goes up beyond that, but it would just tier off. So you could make up to $99,000 as a single filer, and then your amount that you would receive in that check will be whittled down based on the percentage above 75, and the same is true of a couple filing jointly. $150,000 up to $198,000 would be whittled down beyond $150,000. And dependents would receive $500 per dependent living with you. And of course, if it's exactly like the CARES Act, it would be, those adult dependents who are living at home would not qualify. Would not qualify. So Democrats want that. They want that in the HEROES Act, but that's not in this proposal. I imagine that Democrats will fight that point. There are a lot of people living at home by no fault of their own who maybe have a disability. They're being cared for by one of their parents. They are a dependent, and they're not receiving a check. So that should be fixed. And the other thing that Democrats want in their plan is up to $1,200 for each dependent. This will only give you $500. The other big news is on the unemployment front. Republicans are going to reduce that weekly payout. Instead of it being $600 per week, it will drop to $400 per week on average. So they want to be able to pay you 70% of what you're earning at your job, 70% of what you were earning before you were unemployed, not 100% like what the Democrats want, 70%. And this is going to add a whole layer of complexity to the unemployment system. States are going to have to figure out, they're going to have to study how much you made. You're going to have to prove to them how much you made via pay stubs and other things. Then they'll have to calculate 70% of your overall salary, and then work that out with the federal government to have that wage subsidized at 70%. Doesn't that sound like a technical nightmare? These offices already can't handle it. They already can't handle it. And people have been waiting for the unemployment benefits for months, and they still haven't received them. So Democrats are saying you're adding a whole layer of complexity here that we can't handle right now. And they're right. I totally agree with them. It's been a mess. But there you go. So that's the very latest on what we know tonight. We'll have much more on this story tomorrow on the show. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. We do this show every morning, first thing in the morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We do it live. But I wanted to bring you this special report tonight as we get this breaking news out of Washington. So thank you so much for subscribing and smashing that like button. I really appreciate all of your support. Thank you to everyone watching right now. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone.